And it's while getting taxied by host number 3 that the eggs hatch and proceed to irritate this.
To
the point where they get it.
Soviets' deadly remaining nuclear generators. And you know what I think? When I saw this, RTGs. It looks like a radionuclide thermoelectric generator. That's literally what this is right here. That's an RTG. You can't tell me that doesn't look like an RTG. I'm not saying it because of Astroneer. I'm just saying because I've seen RTGs in real life on pictures. That's an RTG. What? You know, deployed over 2,525 radioisotope. Yup, they are RTGs. This is their story.
This is a Cold War story that didn't become well known about in the West until after the collapse of the Soviet Union in 1991. In this video, we're going to take a look at the deadly legacy of the USSR's abandoned terrestrial radioisotope thermal generators.
That's actually what that's actually the generators Soviets are using. That's actually what this is right here. It's an RTG, but this one's more safer than the Soviet one.
2015 movie The Martian to give you an introduction into RTGs.
Good news, I may have a solution to my heating problem. Bad news, it involves me digging up the radioisotope thermoelectric generator. Now, if I remember my training correctly, one of the lessons was titled, "Don't dig up the big box of plutonium, Mark." I get it, RTGs are good for spacecraft, but if they rupture around humans, no more humans. Which is why we very quickly arrived. And planted that flag so we would never be stupid enough to accidentally go near it again. But, as long as I don't break it.
I almost just said everything will be fine out loud. Look, the point is, I'm not cold anymore. And sure, I could choose to think about the fact that I'm warm because I have a decaying radioactive isotope riding right behind me, but right now I got bigger problems on my hands.
Although The Martian is science fiction, the RTG that Matt Damon is digging up isn't. These are NASA RTGs that were used on the Cassini spacecraft, and this is a photo from 1997 where a technician is measuring the external radiation on the RTG. RTGs have been used for long-range spacecraft since the 1970s, but generally they're not used for manned space travel or satellites due to the risk to humans. It was, of course, the 1986 Chernobyl disaster that disclosed to the Western world the woeful state of the USSR's nuclear facilities and the Soviet state's cavalier attitude to radiological safety and nuclear engineering. So, the West only used RTGs for long-range space travel due to the risk they presented to humans. How on earth did the Soviet Union end up littering their countryside with over 2,500 devices, every bit as radioactive as an RBMK reactor? The story begins well before the invention of nuclear power, in the years immediately after World War II. Before the war, throughout the Soviet Union, the farms and rural communities had been collectivised and were now run by the state as a socialist enterprise. The peasants now toiled the fields in remote areas supervised by communist commissars as part of a great socialist endeavour. These shiny-happy people, that's where the REM reference comes from, needed organising, and they needed educating politically and motivating. And one of the tools to do that, then, as it is now, was by the mainstream media. Strictly sensitive, vetted printed material and state-run newspapers had a major role to play in propaganda. But one of the best devices in the early 1950s, bearing in mind a lot of the Soviet population in the rural areas were illiterate, was the use of the radio. With the use of shortwave radio, Moscow could effectively strictly controlled narrative. narrative, and therefore state-constructed radios like this one were rolled out across communities throughout the USSR.
Old. I wonder how old those things are. Probably they're 90 to maybe even 100 years old. I mean, I'm assuming since the Soviets literally have been around since what the night they were around 1920s or 1910s, if I'm not wrong. Yeah.
Rural communities.
So I see where we're going.
These radios were being powered by a thermal electric generator, powered by a kerosene lantern. They could see
Kerosene
the rear right of
lanterns.
this photograph. These kerosene lantern electric generators relied on very simple technology, which took advantage of the Seebeck effect. Discovered in 1821 by Thomas Johann Seebeck, applying heat to a semiconductor and cooling the inverse side of that conductor, it induced an electric current between the two. This was a very inefficient way of generating electricity, as over 96% of the energy was lost. The Soviet kerosene lantern generators relied on the heat of the lantern flame to heat the whole side of the semiconductor, whilst a crown of cooling fins attached to the top of the lantern would dissipate the heat out into the room, thus inducing enough current to run a shortwave radio. By the mid-1960s, most Soviet rural communities had diesel generators installed, and this type of thermal generator fell into obsolescence. Pop-Tarts toaster pastries.
You can toast these things? What can you not do with a Pop-Tart?
Although the lanterns became obsolescent in the early 1960s, it would be less than a decade before the Soviet Union required Thomas Johann Seebeck's technology again. By the late 1960s, the Soviet Union had an engineering problem on their hands. The Soviet coastline was over 10,000 miles long, three-quarters of which were located within the Arctic Circle. The northern sea route was hard to navigate and treacherous, but the Soviet government required it for sea trade, but also, more importantly, at the height of the
Naval.
Cold War, for passage for the Soviet Navy. Starting in the early 1970s, the Soviet Union began constructing a chain of over 1,000 lighthouses and radio navigation beacons along its entire coastline, a project that would take well over a decade to complete. There was only one problem. Many of these lighthouses would be hundreds, if not 1,000 miles away from civilization, and during the Arctic winter months could not be visited. So conventional power supplies, such as diesel generation, were not practicable. In looking for a solution to the power supply problem, engineers recalled the success of the kerosene lantern generators used for domestic radios in the 1950s. But now what was needed was enough power to supply a lighthouse and a radio beacon that could be left for years without resupply or maintenance. So now kerosene lanterns would not be enough. Something altogether hotter.
Oh my god, stupid controller. Mm-hmm. Bruh. She also joined TikTok. Your mom has fallen. I'm sorry. I know this news may not... I know this... Because my dad... I'm sorry. You might be asking a lot of questions. You might be even contemplating jumping off a building. I'm sorry. Your mother is lost. Rah. Yeah. I don't know. That sucks, man. Yeah, I'm sorry. That sucks. Yeah, and it's like... Well, I don't want to be like you, who's constrictive and like Joseph frickin' Stalin. Now you're learning what it's like to live in the Soviet Union in the 1920s. Yeah. Huh? Do what? Okay, I know this sounds stereotypical to say, but trust me, do not do that. Because if you don't know how to solve a problem, you don't know how to run life. For example, what's it called? Let's say if I literally, like, if you never played Minecraft before, and I literally just brought you in to kill the Ender Dragon, and it was your first time, you wouldn't, and then I left you alone to do it all by yourself, you wouldn't know how to do that. No, you wouldn't. You have to be taught. The only reason I don't look up answers is if it's like, you know, in English, or it's like a math problem. It sounds like she just has a skill issue, not gonna lie. It sounds the skill issue. Oh, the world's gonna get tough for her. Just watch. As the sign says, buckle up, it's the law. Homie, I've seen somebody that, even with a seatbelt on, they got drunk and they crashed into a ditch. They got sent out of the window, and then their car rolled and it killed their buddy. And dude, that guy won't be able to walk again. And he's permanently changed. He came to my school once. Like, he was done. Like, there was no way he could actually get off of his wheelchair, dude. And it sucks, man. And that was with a seatbelt, I think. Dude, there's a muskrat on my property now. Bust out, bust out, bust out, bust out, bust. Explode, 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 explode. Ha 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 ha. Yeah. Have you ever heard of a guy called Kentucky Ballistics? Search up my 50 cal exploded and you'll see why. Some... There's gotta be, they're not gonna put, let's see, end portal that make a portal, and those blocks I think are indestructible and they make a portal. There's gotta be a connection here. It takes a long time, and they do not drop the block once they break. Can we all be honest? Everybody in Minecraft has at least tried to mine bedrock. Just sit there for an hour or two, maybe. Yeah. Yeah, there is like there might be patched ways, but there are like glitches you can use to destroy bedrock. It's not completely indestructible, but I think on bedrock, it's just invincible. We have a muskrat on our property, and now I'm ready. Like I have a it's this thing that it's aggressive. It's like a beaver, but they're not cute and they're aggressive. And I'm ready to riddle its ass with bullets. I wouldn't hesitate to light up a muskrat. They're mean, and dude, okay, so a gestation period is the time it takes for a baby to develop inside of an animal. Their gestation period is 28 days. So, and not only that, they can have 1 to 4 babies in a litter, which means that if a muskrat is on our property and it's got a mate, it can start pumping out babies. And that's a thing, so we better stop before they do that. We ain't gonna have a fun time once they start having babies. They apparently will attack people. And of course, I'm not gonna be surprised if they have rabies. Which, if not treated, it's very fatal. Kinda. Muskrat.
Step forward, radioisotope. This is a pressed ceramic ingot of plutonium-238 oxide, as used on the NASA space probes that I showed you at the beginning of the video. It is glowing red hot due to self-heating and is around 800 degrees centigrade. The self-heating is caused by the release of radioactive decay heat. Plutonium-238 has a half-life of 88 years.
Yeah, my dad took a 17 and he fired a shot at him, but he got away. And if you don't want to get with the 17, it goes about 25 foot a second, 2,500 foot a second, and it's a hollow point. It's one of the fastest bullets, and it's hollow point. So you can bait it. Whatever thing that's like smaller than a house cat that gets hit with this thing will get smoked. Like absolutely deleted from the face of the earth. Is it time to... I fill up on my soil cancers, and I need to actually... Oh my god!
England were glowing red hot at 800 degrees centigrade for the best part of a century. A very brief look at the physics behind this. Radioactive atoms are unstable, and nature abhors instability. So, unstable atoms seem to become more stable by shedding either highly energetic particles or energy, or both. And this is known as radioactive decay. The particles are either alpha particles, which are two protons, two neutrons,
Or neutrons? Or
particles,
beta,
which
which
are
are one
energetic
neutron?
electrons.
Nope, never
Both
mind.
are forms of ionizing radiation and are bad for humans. The excess energy shed can be in the form of highly energetic waves, known as gamma rays, which are ionizing, or in heat. Different radioactive atoms decay in different modes. That is either alpha decay, beta decay, or gamma decay. And it should be remembered, not all decay modes are accompanied with the generation of heat. So the takeaway point here is, as well as generating 800 degrees of heat, which is useful to us, this slugger Pu-238 is emitting a fairly horrific level of ionizing radiation that you can't see. Pu-238 decays in alpha mode, so it's emitting a storm of alpha particles and maybe a bit of gamma. The red glow here is due to incandescence, that is, non-ionizing photons being released from the material due to its high level of heat. No different to putting a piece of steel into a furnace. An important myth I think I need to kill at this point in the video, which will be relevant later, is that materials do not glow in the dark. This misconception is not helped because certain materials will glow if subjected to ionizing radiation, such as phosphor, gaseous tritium light sources on night sights and instrumentation, or the Cherenkov effect, the blue glow seen surrounding.
Trichinoff, yeah, I know what that effect is. Whatever you do, if you ever see that effect happen, run, because it's a very fatal effect. This guy who was mixing this stuff was an idiot. He leaned over a vat of radioactive fluid, and he got blasted because it went critical, and he saw a blue light flash, and I'm like, yep, you're dead. Because immediately when you see that flash, you're leaning over the source, you're instantly gonna start feeling a lot of pain.
No matter how intense and hazardous to the health it is. For example, this is an intensely radioactive
Not
sample
really.
of cobalt-60, a very intense gamma source. Note the obvious warning that says drop and run. Now, if you were to be unfortunate enough to pick this up and hold it in your hand, it would feel cold to the touch. It would not glow in the dark. You would not feel anything. If you held it in your hand for 30 seconds, you would lose that hand. If you held it for more than 10 minutes, or you're in the same room as it for more than 10 minutes, it would kill you. Contained within his 1988 whistleblowing memoir, written just for his death, the chief scientific advisor for the Soviet Chernobyl mission, Valery Legasov, gave a very chilling description of the effect of acute radiation syndrome on the human body. Narrated here by British actor Aid Emerson.
If it's damaged severely enough, all this radiation will escape. It'll travel through almost anything.
Yeah.
Drift with the wind, odorless, indiscriminate. And it takes life in silence. Severe exposure to radiation begins a decline that is untreatable and atrocious. After initial dizziness and vomiting, sensitive tissues like the tongue begin to swell. Skin blackens, detaches itself. The cells of your body begin to break down. But your DNA is also grotesquely transformed so that in the days following exposure, you're gradually robbed not just of your life, but of the very thing that makes you the human being you are.
Dude, that was absolutely...
Despite the very real risks of deploying highly radioactive material to complete...
What if you could do SEO smarter.
What?
With Wix, you can edit your meta tag.
Completely unsupervised and insecure remote locations, the Soviet engineers designed this terrestrial radioisotope thermal generator to power their lighthouses and radio beacons. This is called a Beta M. It is a mid-1970s designed RPG. It is about 1.5 metres wide and 1.5 metres tall, and it weighs just over 1 metric ton. The Russian words stencilled on the crown of the cooling fan say, Ostorojno radioactivnost, or in English, caution, radiation. The body of the Beta M unit is a very heavy cast steel bulkhead, about 10 centimetres thick, and this acts as the outer radiation shield. A heavy 20 centimetre thick machine steel lid seals the unit, but in a very serious design flaw, this is secured only with normal industrial bolts, not intrinsically safe, safety interlocked or tamper-proof bolts, something that will come back to haunt this design in the future. Inside the bulkhead,
What happened?
not intrinsically safe, safety interlocked or tamper-proof bolts. Very serious design flaw. This is secured only with normal industrial bolts, not intrinsically safe, safety interlocked or tamper-proof bolts. Something that will come back to haunt this design.
Dude, what is it? I swear to God, the Soviet Union, like, the only thing well that they designed are AK platform weapons. They have the worst, absolute trashiest history with nuclear design ever. They can't design crap when it comes to nuclear technology, because the moment they start dabbling with nuclear tech, they always F it up somehow. Chernobyl, they got it. Stalingrad, I think that's right. Stalingrad, they F'd that up too. Now they F'd up RTGs as well. They shouldn't have been allowed with nuclear technology. Actually, I will say they did. The only thing they did good with nuclear technology are the nuclear bombs. That's it. The road ends there.
Sits an inner tungsten liner, which is the primary radiation shield, and above that, the thermal generator and heat exchanger to the cooling fin crown. The heart of the unit, of course, is the radioactive heat source, indicated in red in this diagram, which is about the size of a paint can or a large food can. The power output for the whole unit was 250 watts thermal, equating to electrical wattage of 10 watts, which really doesn't sound much, but you have to remember these units were usually deployed in pairs, and also they charged a battery. It didn't connect directly to the lighthouse. The Beta M radiation heat source looked like this. Unlike spacecraft RTGs, Soviet terrestrial RTGs used strontium-90 as their isotope, not plutonium-238. Why? Because it's cheap. Plutonium is very, very expensive and difficult to produce. Strontium-90 can be refined from a simple nuclear reactor waste, but this comes with some serious downsides. The heat output is much lower and the half-life much shorter. This unit would put out about 400 degrees centigrade, but with a half-life of just 28 years, meaning that every 2 decades the heat source would need to be replaced. Strontium-90 is also very, very hazardous to humans. It mimics calcium in the environment and is a bonus.
Oh yeah. Is it? Alexa, what is strontium in?
Strontium is in group 2.
Oh, yup. It's in group 2. Yeah. Anything in group 2, if it's absorbed into your body, will absorb just like calcium. Guess where calcium goes to? Your bones. And guess what happens when you mix, I don't know, radium or strontium into your bones? They start to get little microscopic holes, to a point where if it's so severe, a simple accidental fall could break your bones. Like, not even like a hard fall either, like a little baby fall could break your bones.
And it's readily absorbed into the human body. For that reason, the heat source is sealed into a stainless steel 2 centimetre thick flask and hermetically sealed. Due to the Bremsstrahlung effect, the X-ray radiation being emitted from this unit would be about 2 sieverts an hour. And this is a Beta M.
Dude, that is hot. 2 sieverts an hour? In an hour, it would only take an hour to kill somebody if you, or half an hour. That's hot.
The Russian Federation, looking very sorry for itself and neglected. But trust me on this one is in quite good condition. This appears to be a defunct Soviet radio beacon site. The collapsed radio mast is along the ground behind the unit, and the RTG transit case is very rusted. Quite often you'll find the RTGs deployed in these steel framed cases. This was to enable them to be underslung from a military helicopter to be deployed. From the 1970s to the late 1980s, over 1,000 Soviet lighthouses and nav beacons were equipped with RTGs, often deployed in pairs for redundancy. During the Soviet years, there were no issues. The technology worked well, and Soviet military maintenance teams had a rolling visit program to check the RTG safety and functions. In fact,
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, nobody uses diorite. Andesite's pretty good looking. Not gonna lie. Okay.
the RTG technology for the Navy. Other Soviet ministries adopted that technology for any application that required remote electrical power,
you're right there.
such as seismic sensors or radio rebroadcast or repeater stations in the remote Soviet.
Try to think of a better way to use this than
In 1989, some 2,500 terrestrial RTGs had been deployed across the whole Soviet Union. Then, in 1991, it all came crashing down. In a few short months, the USSR collapsed both politically and economically, shattering into 16 various independent states.
Ukraine was one of them.
Ministries that regulated and maintained the RTGs ceased to exist overnight, and the new Russian Federation that now took over most of the old Soviet landmass, where most RTGs were sited, was bankrupt, and they had neither the will nor the money to maintain the infrastructure. If a lighthouse or beacon worked, all well and good. If it broke down, it was simply abandoned, and the RTG left to rot. For the next
Idiots!
Nobody really cared about these legacy
You idiots!
Not the Russian government, nor the international community.
This just screams Soviet. They left a piece. They left a whole, like, if you don't know what RTGs are, they're like baby nuclear reactors. These guys left RTGs to rot by the elements. Do you know how bad of a decision that is? That could lead to thousands, if not millions, of lives lost if those things are not recontained. Oh, the Koala super deep borehole. They made it out 7 miles down before the tungsten drill bit was melting and started to heat up until they retreated and they capped it off. The hole is about 8 foot deep. If you dropped a quarter on there, please don't drop a quarter down there. Cute little quarters. It'd take about a few minutes for it to hit the bottom.
RTGs were deployed in remote locations away from governmental and environmental NGOs.
I don't know, maybe I would kind of maybe think that'd be true because heat expands, and if heat is escapes from the core, maybe it would like expand to the point where it just explode the cap. They didn't even hit the mantle, by the way, so they're not even close to the core.
With the exception, maybe, of the most famous RTG site, Aniva Lighthouse in Russia's Far East. Built in 1939 and abandoned in 1991 because of its creepy, gothic, abandoned style. It became an unlikely tourist attraction for tourists and urban explorers. But Aniva Lighthouse was powered by 2 IEU-2 type RTGs. At least the Russian authorities put out some health and safety signage to warn off tourists. Ostorozhno radioactivno. Caution, radiation. And on the steps leading up to the lighthouse from the sea, radiatia, radiation. Because of Aniva Lighthouse's popularity in the media, it was one of the first to be decommissioned, and the RTGs were removed in 2006, fortuitously having never leaked or been tampered with by tourists. High-profile sites like Aniva Lighthouse, with its well-behaved urban explorers and tourists, was never the problem. It was elsewhere in the former Soviet Union, particularly in the remote, rural Russian Federation. where after 20 years in service and 10 years of neglect, some RTG sites were degrading rapidly. Like this now defunct and really rusty radio navigation beacon site. The
That's
RTG
cool.
unit would have been housed in this rusty equipment shed, completely unsecured and unsupervised by the authorities. Elsewhere in exposed areas, storm weather destroyed woefully inadequate wooden protective enclosures, exposing the RTG unit to odd stored conditions, which in turn damaged the unit itself. Something that should be discovered by a maintenance inspection that never came. Unbelievably, some RTG units were intentionally deployed out in the open, disclosing a shocking level of engineering input. This, for instance, is a lighthouse seemingly constructed of waste.
I don't know how to grow the mushrooms except for this to speed grow them.
Left out in the elements.
At Ultralight, we care about the community, which is why we offer multiple solutions for the best water quality at your home. Consider a whole home water.
Huh?
These type of slapdash, timber lattice, RTG powered lighthouses were not that uncommon in the Soviet wilderness. Built by engineers presumably under time constraints, but with little or no thought to the safety and the risks of the RTG unit that powered them. Eventually and inevitably, the exposed and neglected units began to fail. With this RTG, the outer case has been split open by water penetration and freezing in the harsh Russian Arctic. The label POV is Russian for gully or crack. This unit would now be leaking significant amounts of radiation and would be a danger to anyone unfortunate enough to approach it. But weather alone was not the greatest safety threat to the abandoned RTGs. That was, as always is, human stupidity and greed. The abandoned lighthouse...
Dude, by vandals and the... Dude, you know what's scary is the people that try to destroy these things, they don't even know what they are, and then half the time they accidentally start a radiation breach. Like, can you imagine that being a salvager, going for junk, and you find one of these things, and you don't even know what it is. It looks like an old piece of technology, but in reality, it's a baby nuclear reactor waiting to give you a one heckin' of a wallop. Cut that thing open, it's gonna be, you're gonna have one evil, awful demise.
Not to go anywhere near the RTGs, but many were not. This RTG unit has been attacked by a metal thief, presumably with a sledgehammer, who had the tools to open the case. Occasion, metal thieves would be stupid enough to open an RTG case, which, as I described earlier in the video, can be done with just a domestic spanner set. This is a Beta-M unit that has been fully dismantled by metal thieves, and the radioactive heat source and tungsten inner radiation shielding removed. According to the International Atomic Energy Authority, the Russian radioactive heat source unit about 100 meters away from this Beta-M unit and recovered it using a bomb disposal robot. The metal thieves that did this were never caught, but they would almost certainly have suffered very serious radiation sickness and possibly would have died. By the late 19th were not. This RTG unit has been attacked by a metal thief, presumably with a sledgehammer, who lacked the tools to open occasion metal thieves would be an RTG case, which, as I described earlier in the video, can be done with just a domestic spanner set. This is a Beta-M unit that has been fully dismantled by metal thieves.
Oh, that bothers me. It's opened. They cracked one of these bad boys open. Dude, there is no way in hell these guys survived past a few weeks, whoever opened this thing.
Atomic Energy Authority.
Yeah,
Authorities found the radioactive heat source unit about 100 meters away from this Beta-M unit and recovered it using a bomb disposal robot. The metal thieves that did this were never caught, but they would almost certainly have suffered very serious radiation sickness and possibly would have died. By the late 1990s, even the Russian government had to admit they had a serious problem on their hands. But with sad inevitability, it would take a serious incident of death and injury to innocent parties to galvanise the international community into dealing with the Soviet RTG problem. And that incident was the Lear event in 2001. Lear is a small town in the Caucasus country of Georgia. Georgia was once part of the Soviet Union, but gained independence in 1991. Our story takes place in December 2001. 3 men from the town took a flatbed truck up into the mountains above Lear, intending to cut wood from the forest to sell on as firewood. Towards the end of the day gathering wood, one of the men found an area in the forest about 5 metres in circumference where the snow had completely melted. In the centre of this circle was a silver metal cylinder that was sizzling like an iron as the snowflakes fell on it and boiled off. Sadly, viewers, I'm pretty sure you've already guessed what this unfortunate woodsman has found. But how would a poorly educated woodsman have any comprehension of the danger he was in? Fascinated by this magical natural heater, the woodsman decided to make a makeshift snare and drag the cylinder to the forest track, to the area where he to camp from. The hot sun was probably just a pile of rocks to reflect the heat back on the area. The other woodsman lit a fire. Well, the 3 of them sat around the fire drinking bootleg vodka. After about 2 hours, all 3 woodsmen began vomiting.
That almost makes me want to tingle, man. These guys set up nuclear fuel from one of these things, and they use it as a heat source, which works. But you're not gonna have a fun time after about using it for an hour.
They had intense headaches, something they attributed to contaminated vodka. They attempted to sleep, but sleep was impossible as the sickness got much, much worse during the night. Eventually, in the early hours, they could take no more and decided to strike camp and drive back into Lear. Back in Lear, all 3 men began to suffer burning sensations across their entire bodies. Woodsman 1, who had found the cylinder, lost the use of his hands as his fingers had swollen up and it was painful to make a fist. All 3 sought medical attention, and within 7 days, all 3 were hospitalised. Local medics could not deal with the severity of their symptoms, so they were transferred to a military hospital in Tbilisi. At the military hospital, radiation exposure and acute radiation syndrome was diagnosed. And this is footage of all 3 being treated for serious radiation burns 4 weeks now after the incident. Patient 1 was the woodsman who found the metal cylinder, and he was the one that slept closest to it by the pile of rocks at the campfire. Patient 2, the second woodsman, had slept the second closest to the metal cylinder, but about a metre further away than patient 1, and it was this metre that probably saved his life. He had radiation burns to his legs, buttocks and upper back. Patient 3, the third woodsman, slept the furthest away, about 3.5 metres away from the metal cylinder, and he had patchy burns to his upper back only. Due to YouTube community standards, thankfully I cannot show you any more of the medical condition of the woodsman. But Valery Legasov's description was completely accurate earlier in the video. Their decline was horrendous. Radiation burns do not heal like normal burns, and all 3 woodsmen required multiple skin grafts. Also, because their immune systems had been destroyed by the radiation, all 3 needed bone marrow transplants. Thankfully, Woodsman 2 and Woodsman 3 survived their treatment after months in hospital. Sadly, Woodsman 1, patient 1, the guy who found the metal cylinder and slept closest to it, did not live, and he died after months of treatment. Once the woodsmen were diagnosed with severe radiation exposure and recounted their story about the mysterious hot cylinder they had found in the woods,
Wait a second. Okay, I think I have an idea. Instead of taking the scrap and spreading it around, I could take the ammonium and spread it, or astronium and spread it around. If I spread the astronium around, each astronium is worth approximately 3 scrap? Is it? Is it not? Okay, so a solid fuel thruster is about 1.5 scrap, and an astronium is approximately astronium thrusters, or solid fuel thrusters. This means that each astronium could effectively make 3 scrap. 3 scrap, yes, yes. And if I could, although expensive, if I could spread the astronium around, it'd be more efficient and more better than spreading around the scrap. Yes, yes. Maybe if I just got a reverse engineer, quite literally, reverse engineer.
Authorities declared a major incident and physicists began to scour the mountain paths for the lost radiation source. This wasn't difficult because the radiation.
Yeah. I today I'm gonna make the best financial decisions that a man can buy. Check's entire Christmas savings on wheat pennies. I mean, you could, although a little bit difficult, you could buy it from the clerics. By the way, so I calculated something. Okay, so Grandpa has 250 wheat pennies outside of his books and rolls, just loose ones. And then he's got about probably, I want to say estimate 50 in a roll an old roll he's got. So that's about, let's see, that's about 300, right? And plus 141 if he had every single wheat penny. So that's 440. Yesterday I got my 500th wheat penny. I have one. I absolutely destroyed. Dun 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 dun. Hold on. Give me a second. Want to hear? What's it called? This is Plantera. Let's listen. It's okay. So what? It's actually a reference to the Easter egg, but you don't get it. Pantera. Pantera is a band. It's a rock band. And here's the thing about Pantera. One of the developers for Terraria loves Pantera. So what they did is that they made a boss called Plantera, which actually is it's like the plant from the original Jumanji movie. But Plantera, actually, that song seats Plantera correctly because Plantera in Terraria is a hurdle to overcome. Huh. I don't know. I think he left the team, sadly. So many solid fuel thrusters, my dude. Hold on, I'll show you. Yeah, these parents, I think you're just gonna get some sort of like brain cancer from video games. Like, bro, holy crap. Sheep. What? Even me, I love it, but I love games, but like, but, bro, I that just sounds like a parenting issue to me. Parenting issue, skill issue. We'll probably go then. They could put an auto arm right here, and I could probably even put like a furnace here. Oh yeah, so only fill up the slots that it needs, and then the only problem is I need to find a way to time these two machines here perfectly to where they will where they won't just start shedding off material. Because the moment they start shedding off material is the moment they start, you know, failing. I'm gonna take a break. I might go out and eat lunch.